Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Anna and I'm going to be your host during this session titled Mental Health, Recognize and Respond. This session is specifically addressed for managers, and today we have Terry with us. She's going to be helping us learn more about mental health and how to provide support to our employees and our teams in a healthy way. Just before we begin, I want to remind everyone that we're going to be on silent mode. However, we have the control panel, and in that control panel, we have a questions tab. These questions are totally anonymous. No names will be disclosed. Only myself and Terry will be able to see them. We also have a handout available in the control panel. This is a PDF recap of the session we're about to go through. You can download it and share it with your family, with your friends, maybe a coworker who couldn't be with us today, whomever you think this information might be useful to. This session is being recorded and will be available on your EAP website. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much, Terry.
Awesome. Thank you. Again, welcome this afternoon to Mental Health, Recognize and Respond. I am really looking forward to presenting this afternoon, and I hope that you all will be willing to engage, ask questions, and share comments. I will be posting some questions more specifically out there to you. So definitely provide some feedback and information this afternoon. All right, so we're getting into learning about mental health, and we want to start out with, again, making this an interactive training. I know it's lunchtime, everybody's probably a little sluggish, so we can wake up by getting involved. Respect your needs through the training. If you need to take a break or just turn your camera off or anything, definitely do that. Show one another respect with your comments. Let's keep it tasteful. Just remember that there is no dumb question. So whatever questions you have posted out there, I am the only one that's able to see your questions and your comments. So we do not disclose that. It is confidential. Also, all training information is general information. So it will not be specific towards your organization or company or a particular region, but this is general information. Okay, so we are jumping into our objectives for this afternoon. So today we're going to be learning why mental health awareness is important. And I don't know if you knew it, but this is Mental Health Awareness Month, the month of May. So this is an awesome time to be talking about mental health. But we want to talk about why it's important to bring awareness, understand mental health and the different conditions of mental health, learning how to recognize the signs to be concerned about mental health. We're going to discuss strategies for having a conversation with an employee who might be in need of support. And then finally, how to manage employees and teams that are in a crisis. So these are the things that we're learning today. And we're starting with the first question. What is mental health? What are some of the responses that you all have? What is mental health when you hear it? And you don't have to give a clinic answer. Just give me a general answer of what you think mental health might be. And I'll give you a second. I know you're just jumping on here, but what are some things that come to mind when you hear mental health? And I'm seeing you guys are starting to post things already. Emotional, social, cognitive, and well-being. Yes, great. What else? What do you think of when you hear mental health? Okay, we got some more popping up. How I think, feel, behave, and cope. Yes. Okay. You guys have got some good answers out there. That's really good. Okay, so we're going to get into the definition of it based on what the World Health Organization is telling us mental health is. This is a state of mental well-being that enables people to cope with the stresses of life, realize their abilities, learn well and work well, and contribute to their community. That's a mouthful, isn't it? When we're talking about mental health, that encompasses a lot, because it's not just a state of being, but it's also how you cope. It also is where you are in your abilities, your ability to work and to learn, and how you move around in your community. So that is a mouthful, but we're going to get into a little bit more of it and break down some more. So a few things about mental health that you may already know and may not. There are 1 in 8 people in the world who have a mental health condition. So when we're looking at the number of people in an organization, when you have, hundreds of people in organization, then that means that there is a high number of possibilities of people who work there who may have a mental health condition. And this is diagnosed mental health condition. So the difference with diagnosed, and we use that word, versus undiagnosed, are people who have actually went to a licensed therapist or a psychiatrist or a psychologist and who have been diagnosed with a condition, versus someone who may experience something like depression or anxiety, but they've never went to actually formally have it diagnosed or been tested. So when we're talking about 1 in 8 people, these are 1 in 8 people who have actually been diagnosed with a mental illness. Anxiety and depression are the most common conditions. I am a licensed therapist, and mostly the people that I see, even though my focus is on marriages and relationships, usually there are one of the individuals that may have anxiety, depression, or something else. So even when people are being seen for work-related issues, relationship type issues, it's very common for one of those individuals to have anxiety and or depression. 12 billion, this is an interesting fact, 12 billion working days are lost globally every year due to anxiety and depression. That's a lot. 12 billion working days. So we know that there's 365 days in a year, including weekends. But when you're moving the weekends out and there's 52 weeks in a year, and you're looking at 12 billion, that's a lot of days in 1 year that people are needing to take off due to anxiety and depression. And the issue is that, again, these are sometimes undiagnosed as well as diagnosed conditions. But think about how that impacts an organization. And you can even, another statistic or another fact is that the loss, it costs over $1 trillion a year in company productivity being lost. $1 trillion per year, because you have so many people missing work due to anxiety or depression or a mental illness. You're losing, most companies combined are losing trillions of dollars. So that's pretty an alarming fact. That means that we have almost epidemic. Okay. Why is it important for managers to be aware of and support mental health? There's the definitions that are on the screen, but I want to hear from you as managers. Why do you feel it's important? Why do you feel this training is necessary for you to learn about mental health and, to just really be more aware? Because it goes beyond those 4 bullet points that are on the screen. And you can post them in your chat. I'm looking and watching. Why do you feel as a manager you should be aware of mental health and support? Let's see if we got some people posting comments. There we go, right on cue. Creating supportive work environment is part of your job, okay. What are some other reasons? Does anybody think safety, especially with the things that are happening around the world today in schools? What about safety? Anybody? Raise your hand if you think safety is a factor and why it's important. Okay, I see one hand going up. So we do have a legal obligation. We do have a moral duty. Happy workers are productive workers. And business case. But we want to get into some more. When I think of why it's important for managers, number one, it helps to ensure that your people have a place to work where it's a safe environment. It helps them to connect. It helps them to feel like they belong. But when you have people who are struggling with maybe anger, depression, anxiety, it creates a hostile type of work environment. It creates a work environment that is not a happy place to work. It can be toxic for people to work there. So when you are concerned about mental health, when you are trying to be supportive, it helps reduce that type of work environment. Okay. What mental health conditions have you heard of? So I know you heard me mention what was already on the screen, anxiety and depression. I think most people are familiar with that. But what are some other mental health conditions that you might be aware of? And you as managers, even what maybe your employees have shared or coworkers have shared, what mental health conditions have you heard of or mental diagnoses have you heard of? Let's see how interactive we're going to be today. Bipolar, schizophrenia, OCD, yes. ADHD, yes, definitely. Anything else? Okay. So those are definitely some mental health issues or conditions. And before we go there, I wanted to point out that you have mood disorders, which falls under some of your bipolar, but depression can be a mood disorder as well as the bipolar and anxiety. And then you have the psychotic disorders such as your schizophrenia, schizoaffective, people that, just have the hallucinations. You have those type of disorders. You have eating disorders. You have the disorders that fall under the neurodevelopment like ADHD, not OCD, but ADHD. Usually adults don't typically have the conduct disorder that happens mostly with children. But what's interesting enough is that you have adults that go undiagnosed with ADHD as children, but when they become adults, they discover that they may have ADHD. And so sometimes there's diagnoses that do not get discovered until you're in adulthood or until you work in specific job positions. You recognize that you have a particular condition. Is that something that you guys are aware of? Let's see those hands. That some conditions don't get disclosed or exposed until maybe either adulthood or a particular work environment. Okay, I've seen one hand go up also. Okay, so the mental health continuum. This is very helpful with understanding how mental health works. And one thing that is interesting when we talk to family members and friends that have someone they know with mental health, the challenge is that mental health is not something they can see. So when we're talking about mental health, is again, it's behavior, right? It's in your cognitive, is in the way you feel. Those are not things that are immediately noticeable. So sometimes people tend to forget that they have someone that worked for them that may be dealing with depression because they look normal. They come to work, walking, talking, dressing okay, but because they're doing those things in the physical, we tend to exclude what's happening in the mental. And so this continuum is going to show how sometimes you have people who have the severe diagnosis, which falls in more of the clinically diagnosed, that they are aware, they've been to the doctor, they've been diagnosed, right? And then you have people who are, maybe they haven't been diagnosed, but they have all of the symptoms and behaviors, on over to people who do not have the diagnosis at all, or people who may not have any type of mental illness. So you have the severe diagnosis all the way to the non-diagnosed. And then we look at the vertical part of it, which is people who are functioning at a very high level of well-being. So they might have a little bit of depression, but they're functioning very well. They're being able to cope. They know how to manage stress. They're doing all of these things. And then again, they may not have a diagnosis at all. And then you have down below the bottom part, which is minimal mental well-being. So they may not have been diagnosed, but they also may not do well with stressors. Okay. And when we start putting in the quadrants, the mental health diagnosis and positive well-being, that is to your far left, showing you may have a person who has a severe diagnosis, let's say depression, but they function very well with the depression. Maybe they're taking medicine, maybe they're using coping skills, maybe they're doing both. And then when you look on the other side of it, there is no mental health diagnosis, but they still have a very high positive well-being. And then when you look below, you see a mental health diagnosis and low well-being. So this is someone who does have a diagnosis, but they do not function very well without coping skills, support, and possibly medicine. And then over to your right, a person who does not have a mental health diagnosis, but they also do not do well with managing stressors or things in their environment that may come up. Some things can be situational, such as maybe something that happens in a neighborhood or something that happens on the job that impacts someone, with grief or with depression. It does not necessarily mean that it's something that's going on within that person. So we have to be able to compartmentalize and separate the difference when we're looking at a no mental health diagnosis versus a mental health diagnosis. How do we normalize talking about mental health? Okay, this is an opportunity for you all to engage again. How do we normalize this? Because we hear terminology that brings a very negative stigma to mental health. We hear things like, this person is crazy, or we hear things like this person seems to be, going through a lot. And those things those words and verbiages have a very negative connotation to it. But how do we normalize it? How do we help people to understand that it's normal to be depressed? It's normal to deal with anxiousness or racing thoughts. How do we normalize these type of behaviors in mental health? I think we got some people responding. Come on, I want to see you guys interact. I want to hear from you because you're the ones working with the team. Let's see what we got. Okay. So we have creating a safe space is, I think that's normalizing is what you're saying. In order to normalize discussions about mental health, we have to create spaces where it's safe to have the discussion. And we also have to educate. Educating is huge. Bringing awareness is really big because, again, some people do not believe that mental health is real. I've had clients who have, we are talking about their behaviors and they very well demonstrate all of the boxes for being depressed, but they don't believe that depression is a real thing, maybe from their family, their culture, or what have you. And so people have to be aware of what mental health is in order to start the conversation of normalizing. Anyone else want to chime in on how to normalize this discussion? I don't want to cut you off. If you do post in the chat, I can go back to it and pick up on it. So here are some things that we have here. Speak openly about your own experience. Be a role model. Check in frequently. Improve your language about mental health. Remember I said some people use terminologies like crazy. Oh my gosh, they seem so sad, or they seem pitiful, or words like that. Changing that language to say, well, use words like healthy, well-being. I want to go back to speak openly about your own experiences. So that is, I think, one of the most powerful ways to bring awareness and help people to talk about mental health. So people are typically surprised when I tell them as a therapist, I go to therapy. I want to see hands. How many of you are surprised to hear that as a therapist, I go to therapy? My clients are usually surprised when they hear that. And how can I do the work as a therapist if I'm not seeing a therapist? If I'm not having a safe place to go to share my own problems and issues and to make sure that I'm taking care of myself? One of the things that I do is I listen to people all day about grief, about depression, about trauma, about crisis. So I need a place to be able to go and share those things and just kind of refuel and empty out. So checking in frequently, one of the things that we see a lot of with mental health awareness is people are saying, hey, check on your friends, check on your family, check on your coworkers. Some people are not going to check in with you, but you can check in with them. I supervise interns and pre-licensed people, and the first thing I do in my supervision sessions is I do a check-in. Where is everyone at emotionally, and how are you doing? It's important to me that they are well, okay? So we can normalize it using these 4 things. Correct someone if they stigmatize or use an incorrect term, right? So again, we want to use words like wellness, healthy. Recognize that mental health support is not just about counseling. Mental health support can be, again, just checking in on people. Hey, everybody take a break. You've all been working very hard. Let's go outside and take a walk around the building. You know, encouraging people to, by using incentives for, you know, for doing some self-care things. Promote mental health discussions. Talk about self-care strategies. That's one of the things I love to do, is talk about self-care strategies. And one of the things that you can do is work with your team members on self-care strategies. And again, I'm going to come back over to you. What are some things that you do to encourage self-care for your team members? You all are managers, so that means you're supervising teams. People, what do you do to encourage self-care? I think we got some people writing. What are you doing to encourage self-care? Here we go. Keep going, keep going. Flexible schedules, okay. What are some other things we do? Do you ask your team what they need? Sometimes we try to give people things that they don't need. If a team member, maybe they need, I don't know, maybe they need things like breaks on their job, or maybe they need to be encouraged to do take lunch breaks away from their desk. Okay, so we have some more exercise and fitness challenges at work. That's a really good one. One of the things, again, about taking lunch breaks, if you see people working at their desk and eating, self-care can be, hey, go to the lunchroom and take a break, or go take a walk on your lunch break, but don't work and eat. That's not good self-care. It's not good practice. Promote mental health discussions. Again, how do you encourage that during team meetings? Do you provide maybe some facts, you know, each meeting, some type of a fact about mental health awareness, or, you know, some information that can help your team members be more open and normalize the discussion. Okay, so signs to help you be alert. Person that has an uncharacteristic behavior. So maybe someone is usually at work on time all the time, and all of a sudden they start coming in work late, or they need to start leaving early, or they take long lunch breaks, or maybe they were very productive at work and you're starting to notice that their production is low, there's more mistakes, where they're not paying attention to detail. Signs of substance use, being aware that, there's a smell or the way their eyes look. These different things may be a warning to let you know. Irrational fears and paranoia, all of a sudden they become concerned about, what's going to happen with the job. They're concerned about coworkers. They're withdrawn from colleagues, isolating, where they were very interactive. All of a sudden they start to withdraw. They don't want to come to social events. These are different signs that help you be aware that there's something that might be going on. That these does not mean that this person is depressed. Let me say that these are just signs to be alert. And certainly if you're seeing all of these, then you definitely need to be concerned. Having a conversation about mental health. So again, we're talking about bringing awareness. How do you feel about starting a conversation with a coworker about their mental well-being? And that's a loaded question, right? But just to kind of give you some thoughts, is, hey, did you know May was Mental Health Awareness Month? And I just want to know, like, what kind of things do you do to do self-care? How do you take care of yourself? Have you ever, and this is a good question to put out there, have you ever taken a stress test? Have you ever did an anxiety questionnaire? These are conversations that you can have with your coworkers to kind of bring about more information concerning mental health, because some people don't know that there's screenings out there that they can take to help determine where they are with their mental well-being. So we offer stress questionnaires, anxiety, depression questionnaires. There's questionnaires for almost everything. One of the tools that I provide people who really struggle with self-care is a self-care assessment to see in different areas of their life, how are they doing with taking care of their physical needs, their spiritual needs, their leisure needs. There's different areas of your life that should be balanced. Okay. You all are putting out some good comments. So we're approaching the conversation, right? Prepare mentally and physically for the conversation. So mental health brings, for a lot of people, it brings a lot of emotions with it, because maybe someone has been not disclosing that they're struggling with depression. And so if you start talking about it, it may open up a floodgate for someone. Maybe someone's had trauma, or somebody in their family has had trauma. And so if you are talking about grief in the workplace, it might open up, again, a floodgate of emotions for that person. So you want to prepare for it mentally. Let your coworkers share as much or as little as they want to. So that's not the time to be, okay, tell me more. Tell me more. What, if a person is saying, you know what, I'm dealing with grief, we've had a lot of death in our family, and this can be overwhelming. And if that's all they want to share, be okay with that. But again, that's information that you're needing to know, that there's something for you to be concerned about and show support on. Don't try to diagnose or second guess their feelings. This is a really big one. I've got so many people that love to diagnose their spouses, their supervisors, their employees. Like, they just feel the need to want to do that. We don't want to diagnose people based on their behavior, right? We don't want to diagnose them, and we're not the licensed professional to do that. So when people are sharing, just let them share. Just let them share. Reassure them about confidentiality. Let me tell you something. If you can't keep a secret, don't ask people to share. If you struggle with keeping things confidential, you might not be the person to put out there for them to share the information, okay? So make sure that confidentiality is something that you are very strong about being able to support and do, because it just tears down everything that you may be working hard to do when you're talking about awareness and support and trying to help people to disclose or to look into more services in their mental wellness. So confidentiality is really, really huge. And understand what you need to disclose versus what you don't. So as licensed therapists, there's some things that we are licensed and mandated to report, and then there's everything else that we can't. And we let clients know that up front. Okay, so we're talking about the listen model. Listen actively and validate. This is huge. Again, someone is sharing about death in their family. Wow, this sounds like it's very overwhelming. I can see how this can, impact your productivity at work. I can see why this might, slow you down. So you're active listening, nodding your head, shaking, with understanding. Involve the person. So maybe, just letting them know that you're there for them, that you want to be able to support them, that you will assist them with resources. Share your understanding. Like I just said, this sounds like it is overwhelming. It sounds like this is a lot for you to manage. Think about your body language. Are you trying to multitask, doing 3 or 4 things while this person is sharing something very sensitive with you? Or did you stop what you were doing, make eye contact, and again, engage with what they're saying? Empathize and encourage. Again, you're not the therapist, but you can encourage by saying, can I point you to a resource? Is there a place that we can help you get some support? And then next steps forward. So one thing I do want to highlight in here, that about when we're talking about mental health, sometimes it's not the people that work for you. It might be family members that are struggling with mental health that is impacting the well-being of the person that is on your team. So I see people who have their primary caregivers to an elderly parent. They're exhausted. They're trying to balance work and taking care of an elderly parent. They themselves don't have a mental illness, but the stress and the overwhelming work that it requires is almost putting them into that anxiety and depressive state, right? So you might not have the person who actually works for you with mental health, with mental diagnosis, but maybe they're taking care of someone, or they're a parent of someone, or a spouse of someone. Helpful things that you might say. This took a lot of courage to share, and I'm glad you did. A lot of what you talk about resonates with me. Thank you. That part right there is major, because you may have just unlocked something for someone else to be able to open up and be vulnerable about. I'm here if you need to talk. Is there anything I can do to help? you are not alone. So again, these are some very, very powerful words to say to people when they are disclosing about mental health. Just want to take a poll. How many of you have had to say any of these things, or maybe you've thought about you need to say something but don't know how? I see hands going up. Do you think that this will help you to be able to know what to say when somebody discloses? Let's see those hands. Will this help you? Is there anything additional that you have said that's not on here that you would like to share? Anybody? Okay. If you do post, we can go back and look at it. So this is talking about developing a wellness action plan. Again, signs and symptoms. Signs are things that people typically do or say. Symptoms are definitely what they do. One of the first questions I ask when people come into therapy is, describe the symptoms you're having. Just like when you go to a doctor and you say, I'm having vomiting, high fever, fatigue, I'm asking about those symptoms that you're having as far as maybe sleeping too much, can't sleep at all, overeating, not eating at all, racing thoughts is a symptom people don't typically think about. Maybe the fidgeting or the rocking, the shaking the legs. These are all different symptoms. Stress triggers. What are some things that happens that sends you into being stressful? Maybe checks not getting to you on time, or a trigger might be when you get ready to go home to take care of that elderly parent. You already are starting to get overwhelmed thinking about what you have to do. Another stress trigger can be having to get up for some people in the morning and go into work. Potential impact on work. So that's another question that I may ask, or I'm going to ask, is how much is what you're experiencing impacting your work or school? Let's go back up to one of those first slides where the statement of approximately 12 billion working days are lost to depression. I want to know, how many working days are you losing because of what you're experiencing? Do you have to leave work early? Do you find yourself getting into arguments with coworkers? So that would be the impact on work. And then support required. Do you need to see a therapist? Do you just need some support at home? What kind of support? What type of workplace adjustments are needed? Frequency of check-ins and reviews. So going back to that check-in, I'm checking on everybody. How is everybody doing? We had a very stressful performance thing that we had to do, and I want to see how everybody's managing with that. Who to contact in a crisis. So these are all some wellness plans that can help you or your team members be more preventive with managing their mental wellness. And we are getting close to wrapping up. If you still are having questions or comments, I definitely want you to post those. We will catch them. And here's a site for a wellness action plan guide to help you develop a wellness plan. And believe it or not, one thing that I do every November and December is I create a wellness plan for myself. I develop a plan for my spiritual, my finances, my leisure, my work, my whole different aspects of my life. I create a wellness plan. Because if I just work all the time and I don't have any balance, if I'm not doing anything to step away from my job, I'm going to burn out and I'm not going to be good for my clients. If I'm not thinking about finances, if I'm not being able to manage my bills, I'm going to become stressed. So I want to be able to see that I'm making goals and I'm meeting milestones financially. So definitely wellness action plans are really, really powerful and helpful. If I'm looking 3 months down the road and I haven't been doing the things on my plan, I need to stop and figure out what's happening, what's going on. I want to see hands. How many of you are already using a wellness plan? And there's 9 people on here. How many people are using a wellness plan already? Let me see hands. I see comments. Okay, hold on. Let's see. Somebody said somewhat. Okay. I want you to try to work towards using a wellness plan. Anybody else using a wellness plan already? I'm not seeing any hands. How many of you will try to use a wellness plan? Okay, I see a hand. Can I see more than one hand? How many of you will try to use a wellness action plan or some kind of a wellness plan? Okay. Moving on. Supporting an employee with health challenges. What this may look like is communicate with the wider team. So again, you don't want to single anybody out. Support employees who are off sick and with their return to work. Establish and maintain boundaries. And I think people really do respect when they have supervisors who can respect their boundaries. Okay, somebody said they will start today. Yay, that's what I want to hear. It's not hard to do, really. Start putting things on your calendar that you can do. And here's the other thing. Remember, we were saying ways that you can bring awareness is model the behavior. Encourage your team members. Let them know, hey, I realize I have not been doing a wellness plan. I'm getting ready to start. I want to challenge. People love challenges, especially if you work with a competitive group. But say, I want to challenge you guys to start using a wellness plan. And let's see if we can increase our mental wellness. Prioritizing mental health. Ask direct questions. Validate feelings. Give the person hope. So asking direct questions can be as simple as, are you grieving? Do you feel sad? Do you need help? Direct questions. Validate feelings. Don't try to tell people what they feel. Sounds like you depressed. No, we don't want to give them that, but it sounds like we can maybe look at getting some more information about what's going on. Give the person hope. Again, you're not alone. Sometimes people just want to know, I'm not in this by myself. I am not the first person in this world struggling with depression. I am not the only person that's having postpartum depression. So when people feel that that they're not alone, it helps them to be more open for receiving help. Focusing on well-being. We're wrapping up now. Focusing on well-being. Connect your coworker to workplace support, such as EAP. Talk about feelings. Find new or different coping techniques. When what you're doing is not working, it's time to do something different. So sometimes you have people that on your job that, you know, your teams, and maybe something you suggested or something they've been doing to try to help them focus or stay, be on time, or whatever the situation is, maybe that coping skill is not helping them anymore and they need to find a new coping skill. That happens a lot with people who struggle with ADHD. I am one of those. I have ADHD. It was not discovered until I was working a particular job that was a high demanding, high performance job. And all of a sudden I felt like I was spinning wheels and not getting anywhere. And so I've learned that some coping skills, they work for certain things, but then I have to shift them when I'm doing other things. Steps to take in a crisis. So we now know that people struggle with crisis in the workplace. There might be a workplace crisis. And then there's people individually who have their own crisis that may happen in the workplace, right? So you want to stay with that person. You don't want them to leave going home if they're saying, you know, things, of course, like, I just don't feel like living. I just, you know, this is too much. It's overwhelming. I don't want to be here. You don't want to leave that person alone. Ask how they are. You have to be direct. And this kind of goes over into a suicidal prevention type training. But you want to ask them, are you okay? Are you okay being by yourself? Do you need somebody with you? Ask what they need. You know, how can I help you? What do you need from me? What can we do here in the workplace? So these are three main things that you can do to help a person in a crisis situation. And then number four has a variety of things that within your human resource department that may be able to help, such as contacting the human resource, employee assistance, crisis support, and doctors, of course. So these are some steps that you can take within a crisis in the workplace. Always contact emergency service if there is an immediate threat to life, or you are on your own and don't know what to do. That's the best thing to do. And depending on what state you live in or where you are, there's usually a crisis line, like Georgia has a Georgia crisis line that you can call to get help immediately. Promoting positive mental health. We talked about self-care a little bit, utilizing peer support services, encourage self-reflection. So, you know, talk about, okay, I got through XYZ a few months ago, I can get through this. You know, I need to get back on my medicine, or I need to get back on my self-care plan. These are ways that you can get back into positive mental health behavior. Maintaining well-being, the 5 ways, connect with others. I tell you what, COVID has really put a different spin on working in isolation. People who've never worked in isolation and had to do that for 2 years plus, it's hard for them connecting again. Be active, get out, do, you know, even if, I just say it all the time, even if you walk around the store, Walmart, Ross, go to the park, but get out and move around. Take notice of what's changed with you so that you can get back into those positive habits that you've had. Keep learning and then give. So moving forward, we want to Look at how you could practice the 5 ways to well-being to improve your mental health. Anybody want to share? How can you practice one of those? You've already shared one with me. Somebody did, that they're going to start doing self-care. What are some other things that you can do to practice mental health? And here's the 5 again. I'll go back. Connect with others, be active, take notice, keep learning, and give. So one of those, what are one of those you will do? Anybody? Okay. See, somebody posted being active. Okay, thank you. The great weather is perfect for being, it really is. I love it. How could you encourage coworkers to do the same? Again, challenge. I'm putting a challenge out there. I'm going to start walking every day at lunchtime. Anybody want to join me? Maybe offer some type of incentive for people if they are up not eating at their desk. There's so many things that you can do to encourage people to get up and be active. Remember to look after yourself too. We've been talking about some self-care. And then finally, let's see if we have any questions that I have not addressed already. You guys do have a handout. I don't see any new questions being posted, but this is your EAP information. You do have complimentary counseling sessions and other services. Please take advantage of that. This is a great way to utilize your benefits and to have better mental health and wellness. And if I don't have any more questions, I am going to show you the QR code where you can provide feedback from your training today, where we talked about mental health, recognize and respond for managers. Please leave a comment, share with me how this training was for you today. Okay, there is a question. How do you maintain a professional boundary when talking about such professional feelings or topics? So I don't know if that's for me. How do I maintain a professional boundary, or if you're asking from a management place? But for me, I am very selective in what I disclose. I only disclose things when I feel that it can help a client. If I don't see where it can help them, I'm not disclosing information. And so that, for me, that's an ethical standard that I have to have, but then it's also a boundary as well. For you as managers, keeping a boundary, you don't have to go into a lot of information. You don't have to, be completely vulnerable. You, as one of the statements said, thank you for sharing, that resonated with me. Or something kind of common like grief. It's obvious if you, well, I'm not going to use the word obvious, but it seemed appropriate that if someone close to you has passed, that you would be grieving, right? And so it would not be inappropriate to say, I'm struggling with grief, or this grief is overwhelming. You can say that and not be crossing boundaries or not be, real vulnerable. It helps people to know you're human. And sometimes that's what your team member just want to know, that you're human. Sometimes they see us, and people see their managers and supervisors in such a strong managerial role that it feels like you're untouchable. It feels like you're distant and they cannot approach you. So when you show a little human to you, then it helps people to recognize that, okay, you know, you're a human just like I am. I don't know if I answered your question. If you can respond back to let me know if I answered your question, that would be great. And I hope that you guys all, okay, great. I hope that you all were able to utilize the QR code. At this time, I'm turning it back over to our host, Anna, and she can close us out.
Thank you so much, Terry, and thank you everyone for being so engaging. I think that made this session a lot smoother and a lot more understandable. So thank you for that. As Terry mentioned, this feedback is anonymous and it's greatly appreciated. It helps us grow, it helps us learn what areas of opportunity we have to improve. So thanks for your comments, and I hope everyone has a lovely rest of your day. Bye, everyone.